It's old Santa Claus. Yeah, it's in the middle of the summer. So that's why Daddy's having a little fireball. Nothing wrong with it. That's right, Santa Claus is a little drunk. So what? So what? Broadcasting from Boscoyo Podcast Studios in California and Nebraska. Try to say that when you're hammered out of your mind. The same dudes that brought you the holiday lighting think tank. You're listening to the Professional Triers. Vinny's sitting on Santa Claus's lap. Good boy, Vinny. Here's Vinny and JR.
Welcome to another episode of the Professional Triers. We're one host short, so we got a good replacement. Mr. Brian from the Blinky Flashy Lowdown show, one of the best shows ever about sequencing, because it's our only one about purchase sequences. So he's the best at it. It's awesome. But we have a bunch of people on the show today because we're talking about conventions, expos, trade shows, Transworld, and Christmas Expo. We're just going to lay out the facts of both of them and see how it goes. So we're going to go around the Zoom room and introduce everybody in here. First, I'm going to go to Brian, the co-host tonight. How you doing, Brian?
Yay, I'm a co-host. I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Then we got David Peace, who has attended Transworld and Expo this year.
Yes. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you're kind of like a staple on the show now, too. And then we have Keith, who has not been to an Expo or Transworld and is going to have some great questions on things he wants to know about the two.
I think I have a few questions. I'm really excited. I already have plans to go to Transworld this year, so I'm pretty excited.
Nice. I will be there. And then we have Jay, who has been to Expo but not Transworld. He went this year.
And last year.
And then we have Daniel, who has not been to either show, and it's his first year. So it's a good person to have to get insight on what first year people want to know.
Glad to help.
As he's like half asleep.
Not asleep.
And then we have the super producer of the podcast, Mr. Carl, who's been to Transworld this year and Expo in the past.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
And then we have our new staple to the podcast, Mr. Clyde Lindsay from PPD, who went to both this year.
Hello, folks.
Oh, he's got that sexy mic voice today.
Oh, yes.
All right, so let's talk about Transworld first. So, guys who's never been, what is the top questions you have about Transworld?
Transworld, how I understand it, is a few more days, a couple extra days than Expo. Do you find that those extra days are beneficial as far as taking classes or what classes they offer? And that might be leading into another question, but the extra days, is it beneficial for Transworld versus Expo?
Yeah, I think they, correct me if I'm wrong, JR, I thought they had a similar amount of days, 3 or 4 days each. But I think Transworld just is less heavy on the classes. So Expo has, 6 rooms going on, and every hour they have a class. And Transworld, I know that they're ramping it up next year, but they definitely had fewer classes than Expo did in terms of the DIY classes.
Yeah, but Transworld, I think, was 4 to 5 days.
Okay.
I don't know if it started Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, Transworld's longer, but the classes themselves were they were spread out. So they were 30 minutes to an hour each, and that was it. And then they would shift. So there's more classes, but they're shorter in length. So they don't have like the half day or all day classes like you'd see at Expo.
Yeah, and then there was classes for other things like Halloween, projectors, picking a good Santa, stuff like that.
And Jordan Nash, he had the presentation of the whole show, man. He had the place booked out. There's maybe a couple hundred people in that room for his projection mapping class, which was amazing.
Yeah, that room was packed.
Yeah, I feel like so what are kind of the classes at the Transworld? I mean, I feel like they're more geared to professional, but are there also a lot of kind of do-it-yourself kind of classes as well? Or is it all kind of an all-around learn?
There was a decent amount of DIY classes this year for Christmas. I know they're planning on doing more next year. There was the basics. There was the initial X-Lights. There was more of an advanced sequencing one. There was singing faces. There was portable props, enclosure building, just kind of like a general lowdown on like RGBs and how pixels kind of work and that kind of stuff. And Jordan had his class.
And it all looked bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had like 20 in ours and there was like 200 in his.
Yeah.
So.
Any kind of like animatronic classes, safety classes?
Halloween had animatronics classes.
Okay.
Yeah, keep in mind too, the show's been going on for years and it's always been haunt focused. Mm-hmm. Whereas last year was the first time that they did the Christmas side. So they didn't really know what to expect. And most of the attendees, especially in the classes, were actually from the haunt side. So this year, I think the participation is going to be a lot better because the folks on the haunt side are starting to cross over.
So you see more classes geared to Christmas next year, you think?
I think so. I think so. And especially with more folks that are in the Christmas community and the DIY community having a very strong interest in going to Transworld this year and next year in 2020.
Yeah. Daniel,
for the Halloween. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
For the Halloween side of the trade show at Transworld, is it mainly geared toward commercial, like properties and haunted houses and stuff, or is there any sort of residential type props there and information?
I would say there's a lot of like haunted house stuff, but there is the commercial like fright props. They have a big booth with all their little props to make moving stuff that people use in their homes. It's kind of a mix because with Halloween, something that's made for a haunted house could easily work for your home display. So there was some big like panels and stuff to go on the walls in haunted houses that I don't see somebody using at home, but like all the props and stuff they had could easily be tied into a home display. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the props are things that you might find, say, at your local Halloween store, right? But they're really geared more towards the professional haunts. I'd have to say that just because of the cost too, whereas you'd go into, Spirit Halloween and maybe pay, I don't know, 10 to $20 for a mask or $30 for a rubber mask. They had some masks and stuff there that were well into $200 and $300.
I will say this though, and you guys are right. I think the Halloween side is probably primarily geared towards not the DIYer, but the commercial side. But man, it's fun. And Tifa and I explored there for a good 2 to 3 days and still feel like we didn't see everything because not only is it just walking through an expo floor, but it's interactive. You have like, VR escape rooms. She did a bungee jump, axe throwing. They had the haunted places that you could walk through. There was just a ton of interactive fun stuff. So not that we were looking to buy, but it was just really, really entertaining to walk through.
Okay. So kind of sort of on those lines, it pops something into my head. Do you see Transworld kind of, and I don't want to say dumbing it down, but lowering it down more to a DIY because the Christmas DIYers are coming in. So do you see possibly Halloween DIYers coming in to Transworld for the average homeowner?
I think they already have what they call the home haunters. They already have a fair amount of them. I remember when we had our roundtable in the brew tank with them, they were talking about their home haunters. So it all depends on how. There's some of these guys that do Halloween that are just, it's like a haunted house at their house, so, there was props for like $5, like little foam hammers and like dead bodies and stuff like that. And then there was like the $100 dead body, and then there was the $400 dead body. Well, you could clearly see the difference, but it kind of, there was more of the $400 ones, but they did have stuff for their home haunters.
But that's not their primary target audience.
No, that's
and
not.
I think that's the distinction, is that Transworld has historically been there for the commercial side versus, say, Expo. And I forget how many people they said attended Transworld. I think it was 10,000 is what they typically expect in and out during the course of the week, I think is what they said.
That sounds about right. I mean, they have 100,000 square foot Expo floor, so it's pretty massive.
So that's their expectation.
And they fill it.
Yeah, versus Expo, which is, I don't know how many people attend Expo, but it's nowhere near that, right? So
I think that Expo has obviously been traditionally for the hobbyists, and the hobbyist community is much smaller than the commercial side. It's just, I mean, it's a pinch between your gum and the cheek. It's very small compared to what the commercial industry pulls in. So when you look at what the attraction is, the idea of Transworld Christmas show being Christmas, the major intention was always to bring in more commercial vendors, and it was also to allow those vendors to be exploited to amusement parks and businesses and commercial entities that are looking for that specific niche to do work that they wanted to have done but didn't have an idea of who did it or where to find them. So I think that Transworld did open up, and I think us as you might call us super users. We're super users of Christmas, the Christmas hobbyist side. And when you consider that we're not the norm, all of us here in this group and just in general in the hobby, we're on the upper end of more commonly going out and doing stuff like this. So it does seem like, wow, there's a lot there, and there really is a lot there. But when I walked through the Christmas end, I really didn't see a lot of quote unquote DIY stuff. Even if you consider that it was, even if there were classes, a number of the classes that were taught by people that were in our community. So it wasn't like we saw a lot of classes by a bunch of people that weren't, and they were meant for the DIYers. There's a very big, I think it's a very big distinction to be made, that this quote unquote super users in our community stepped up and became the teachers for the DIY side of it. So I think that is something that needs to be noted. So not necessarily that it's a bad thing, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just saying that was the experience that I saw. Now, I can't attest to any of the classes because I didn't go to any of them. I couldn't go to them. I was there as a vendor. I think, as a matter of fact, I think I'm the only vendor that was in the group here. So my experience is totally different compared to most of yours.
Yeah.
And you've been to, sorry,
No,
Jagar.
go ahead, Brian.
Well, and you've been a vendor at Expo as well. What do you see from the vendor side of it then, the questions that you're getting asked from either Transworld or Expo?
Okay, so I'll clear this real quick. I was not a vendor at Expo.
Oh,
but I was there. I officially was not there in the vendor hall as a vendor, but I was there as an attendee, and I got to attend classes, and I spent time in the vendor hall talking with people. But clearly the difference is